Hey everyone, it's been a while. Coming at you with Party Time Talk number 3. Today we'll be talking about the therapeutic intervention and rehab side of athletic training, and specifically what goes into not only finding the clinical diagnosis of someone, but also developing a treatment plan that actually helps them get better and addresses the true root causes of things. So, first question, broad. What goes into making a solid rehab plan? Is it 3 sets of 10 of 5 basic exercises, or what needs to happen?
I don't know what 3 sets of 10 means anymore. Um, one one specific example comes to mind of a new patient we saw this week that had been given a lot of, or like a sheet of exercises from the doctor's office and said, yep, just do 3 sets of 10 of each of these for however long, and
Mm-hmm.
this is going to be a real shock. What's not getting better? Um, so I think that in the strength conditioning world, we have looked at the number of sets and reps necessary to generate strength, power, hypertrophy, um, endurance, and that's where a lot of those general guidelines came from. If you're developing strength and hypertrophy, you're going um, low reps, high load. If you're developing more endurance, you are going to go higher reps, lower load. Um, and then that strength, which is kind of the mid balance, what we see in rehab, is kind of 8 to 12, and it's all well and good and works in a strength conditioning setting very well, and I would argue that the only difference between rehab and strength conditioning is the presence of injury.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Yep.
However, when we look at the programming and really the periodization within a rehab model, because everything we do should have some sort of a periodization scheme in monitoring the load of the nervous system, of the metabolics, and the tissue.
Yeah.
We have to be cognizant that when we're retraining the nervous system, we're not asking them to just go do 10, 20, 30 reps of something. I need to know that their system can handle 3,000 reps of something. And so we try to load accordingly with our therapeutic exercises and interventions to ensure that load management over time and maintaining good neurologic input all the way through. Now, that's the therapeutic exercise side of things. What about other therapeutic modalities and interventions? There are all sorts of things that we use: dry needling, laser, infrared heat, intermittent compression, um, general red light, instrument assisted soft tissue stuff.
Cupping.
Every now and then we'll do cupping.
There's all sorts of things that can be done
Yeah.
to help an issue along, or at least feed the system to help it recover faster.
Yeah, and so we use those different tools in a variety of ways to augment our therapeutic exercise and interventions to enhance that healing aspect and enhance the nervous system's ability to catch on to what we're trying to do. Um, Sometimes it's adjusting tissue length, quality, tension. Sometimes it's about bringing a whole bunch of cellular awareness to an area to really make sure that we create the best environment for healing possible.
Yeah. Well, one thing I wanted to touch on with how we typically go about therapeutic interventions and then rehab is we use all the tools to basically help the body get into an environment where it can start healing itself, doing its thing. But then anytime you're doing exercise with someone with the idea of rehabbing them back to normal, you have to have some sort of periodization scheme, and you have to be able to make changes with that person, either physiologically, neurologically, what have you. One thing we use consistently in our rehabs is blood flow restriction.
Yeah.
And the reason why we use that is because in order to get positive change, you have to be able to stress and load the system. You have to, right? Regular strength training, you usually do it like 80 to 90% of your 1 rep max to see gains.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in the rehab setting, most times people aren't going to be healthy enough to lift those high loads, but you still have to be able to stress the system. And so BFR helps us do that, where with BFR, at whatever percentage of occlusion you decide to do, there's going to be some direct correlation of how much weight they can lift that's going to then compare to theoretically putting their body through lifting the 80 to 90% of their 1 rep max. And so a lot of times with our rehab, we'll put BFR on people and then have them do some of the very fine-tuned like movement correction things, but then also just low load general strength movements like Bulgarian split squats, deadlift patterns, like what have you. But because they're under blood flow restriction, we're actually stressing the body. And I think one of the biggest issues of why some people don't get better with like the 3 sets of 10 of, oh, do these glute bridges, these clamshells, or what have you, is first, they're not addressing the actual movement and competency. But then second of all, like, they're an athlete. You're not going to be able to create lasting, strong muscular and neurological changes by having them do super low load exercise at that rate.
Yeah.
Like, that's got to, like, in order to make big changes, you have to stress the system. Change happens when you stress the system. And how many people have we heard of, like, oh yeah, I went to PT in my school clothes. I didn't break a sweat at PT. And like, that may be fine if it's like early stages or like your first couple visits post-operatively, but when you come to do rehab for your injury, like, you should feel like you got your rear end kicked when you get out of there. Like, you should feel like you put in work, you sweat hard, your body's shaking because your nervous system's trying to handle the load it just went under. Like, that's how you make change, and that's how you get people better. And I don't think enough people understand that or push people to do that. And I think too, we work specifically with athletes. That level of care may work for like your 60-year-old whoever with their rotator cuff repair, but an athlete that was performing at a super high level that then gets shut down and then is told to do super low load exercise at some generic rep scheme without any idea of how to manage load throughout the 6 to 8 week process they have or whatever, like, you're not going to see big changes. And then people end up wasting 2 to 3 months of time doing low load exercise that's not making them any better when they could have been loading themselves and most likely getting back faster and stronger and better.
Well, you mentioned the time aspect of wasting, but talk about the money aspect of wasting.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I mean, again, we saw another new one this month that I think they said they've paid somewhere between $8,000 and $9,000 out of pocket already this year to meet that out of pocket max, and we're no better. And in 2 visits here, doing all the things they want to do pain-free, no problems, because we addressed the root of the dysfunction and created a good homeostatic environment for the body, and then loaded it appropriately to go back to sport.
Yeah. So. Well, and this will be a separate party time talk, but while we're on the topic, I just want to talk about like the difference between going through an insurance-based model versus us. We are cash pay.
Right.
But the reason why we are cash pay is because we don't want insurance companies to dictate how we're delivering care and everything, but B, I would say too, the reason why we're expensive and why we're cash is because when you come here, you get that hour, hour and a half, 2 hours with us. And I'm not getting on my computer and printing off a generic sheet of, oh, you have this diagnosis, so here are your 5 exercises. Now come see me 2 to 3 times a week to do the same exact ones. No, I literally watch you move, take you through different screens, whatever it needs to be, and I'm like, okay, today you need this, 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 and this, and that's what we're doing today. Oh, and then here are some basic stretches that are going to be good for your specific movement and competency that you can do at home. And then based off what they're going through, it's like, see me once next week or see me once every 2 weeks. Um, and you see so many people just go to PT because they're told to 2 to 3 times a week, and it depends on your insurance plan how much you're paying, but a lot of times you have to pay a copay when you go, and that copay could be anywhere between like $30 a session or like somewhere upwards of, what's the most expensive copay you've heard someone say? $120 to do a PT session where you're most likely probably doing the same exact exercises you did 2 days ago at the same exact rep scheme. So when you think about that level of care, I understand that some people are going to balk at us and be like, wow, that's really expensive. Or, well, if I have insurance, then why would I mean, I talked to one this morning, actually, through Instagram that was like, oh, you don't take insurance? Okay, well, that's fine. And in my head, I'm like, that's fine. You can make that decision.
Sure.
But I was also like, well, we'll be here when you finally decide that, maybe going cash pay is the right way. And again, this will be another party time talk, because this is very important, what separates why we do cash versus insurance. But when it comes to the rehab side of things, the stressing the body and the athlete to actually make changes that typically come about faster than your traditional model, like, that is why we are cash, because we care about the quality, the time spent, the intentionality, and we're trying to do the right thing by people, and we're trying to do that by helping you get better in the least amount of visits possible, and giving you the tools to continue to be better without us. Like, I'm not doing my job if you feel like you have to come see me every single week for like new injuries. Now, if you want to see us for like injury prevention stuff, that's another story.
Sure.
But like, I feel like I've done a good job at the end of the day when I have a kid leave this office that's feeling good and feels empowered with the right tools to keep themselves feeling good, and reaches out to us every 6 months to a year to be like, hey, can I come in and just get checked over and get things cleaned up? Like,
sure.
That is ideal.
Yeah, and I think there's there's a couple different sides of that spectrum. There's the ones that we don't necessarily want to see all the time because they're things that you can do on your own. But there's also the side of, especially in season, we have a lot of it's particularly high in baseball and football season, where kids want to come in once a week just for good recovery, and they know that and the families know by putting in the work on the front side, it keeps them from getting injured on the backside. So we do a lot more of the recovery type of applications. And if we need to throw a couple needles in something, we do. If we need to do some other tissue adjustments, we do. Whatever the case may be, or hey, now this is an issue that's kind of popped up because all of a sudden your high school coach is wanting you to throw 102 pitches and then catch the next game, and then catch 3 or 4 games in a row, and then go back to pitching another day, which is a whole nother conversation of load management, which I know you have.
We'll be talking about that.
We'll have another party time talk on load management. But I do like that, especially in season, kind of weekly check-in from a recovery standpoint and from a injury prevention standpoint, to help them manage the load and addressing any of the other neurologic issues, tissue issues, aches, pains, whatever the case may be.
Well, and I was going to say too, part of the nice thing too about being a cash-based practice is the way it works is you pay a set amount, you come here for a specific amount of time, And basically, whatever you need, that's what gets worked on. It's
Mm-hmm.
not like you set an appointment, you come here, and it's like, oh, well, you mentioned that your knee's hurting, so I'm sorry. All we're going to have time for is only working on your knee.
Yeah.
Like, if they come in and they're feeling relatively good, sweet, let's run the Normatex, the brain tap, have you go through some light mobility stuff, whatever. If you come in and you're like, man, this is hurting, this is hurting, this is hurting, it's like, okay, cool, there's probably a correlation there. Now let's get after it and start treating it. And that's the other cool thing about our model is you're not going to get that everywhere. Or if you are, you're paying even more on top of what you're already paying.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like we're not. I don't feel like we're doing right by people if every service or every modality we have we feel like that they need if I'm charging them extra for
Mm-hmm.
that. Like the reason why you pay so much here is because, well, all the training we have, all the tools we have are at our disposal. I'm going to use to get you better because that is
Right.
my primary goal.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, no, I think that covers a lot of good stuff for the therapeutic intervention side. And I guess the last thing I want to put in here, because it is tomorrow's April, right?
Sure.
I don't know, but athletic training, National Athletic Training Month, is coming to an end, and we've got tons of other things to talk about in terms of what athletic trainers can do. But like, I hope that people understand by watching this video and then just getting to know their athletic trainers, whether it be at the high school, the college, the pro level, wherever they may be, industrial setting, you name it, that they understand what athletic trainers are capable of and what we can do just in terms of helping manage symptoms and treat injuries, but then also the things we can do on the exercise side of things and helping them get better. Because that's been the point of a lot of the posts this month. That's been the point of these party time talks, is to be able to show and prove, look what athletic trainers can do, and guess what, we're really good at it.
Mm-hmm.
So trust us.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So awesome. Hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll catch you on the next party time talk.